Where's your mug?
You know what? I'll be right back.
Why did I say that? There it is. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining episode 7
Whoop,
of
whoop.
Real Talk. It's Real Talk Real Estate with Chrishana and Nate. So today we want to ask the question: is this fake news? How do you know what's real these days? You can go on social media, you can go and look at your favorite news, or if you don't like news, maybe you like to read articles. And there's a lot of information out there. And how do you know what to believe?
Yeah, you really have to do your due diligence with fake news. You got AI, you got people just bored blogging and stuff. So you really need to do your due diligence and, research specific topics and or talk to a professional to get to the matter at hand, right? Because there's so many different stories and so many different opinions. You just don't know what's going on. So I would say don't get caught up in the mass with all of the noise, right? Propaganda, publicity, sales. So take your time to fact check, like you said, and then yeah, in fact checking, make sure that source is credible as well. So yeah.
That's a really good point. Fact checking the source.
Mhm.
Doing your own research, doing your own homework. Even when we talk about things here, research it. Anything that I put on social media, absolutely. You have that right. You have, but sometimes people don't want to, or they'll just take someone else's word and then they'll kind of spread that to somebody else and it just kind of gets around that way. But I want to share a little clip really quick, just how news gets around. Watch this.
Housing market is flashing red. Adjustable rate mortgages, the kind that help blow up the economy and
relief for the housing market. According to that report, home supply is increasing.
There's one real estate analyst who says the housing market looks a lot like it did in 2008. Ouch, at least for home builders, that is. He posted a picture from a building site in Florida with over 20 completed houses for sale. They were advertising 0% down mortgages. They're trying to move the inventory.
So, just a quick disclaimer, we do not have rights to Fox News. They are not sponsoring us. We don't have any contracts with them. That's a little plug real quick. But yeah, so things like that, when you hear things like that and, it's kind of repetitive news, different news channels, stations, they're saying similar things or they're saying different things. Just watching that clip right there, how did that make you feel?
Well, look, I'll say from the angle of just watching that, like I would think that the market is crashing. Like I'm not going to buy anything, just looking at those headlines. And I think a lot of people are moved and bound by that and are like put in a form like scarcity, like, oh no, right? But that's that is like why you need to talk to a professional or dig a little deeper beyond the headlines because yeah, interest rates are fluctuating. Yeah, the tariffs are driving up prices, but it's stuff still being had. Like people, you still need a home, right? Homes are still selling, and
Yeah.
it's just ways to get beyond or overcome the interest rates. And so that's what I implore people to do, to have the conversation, not just look at that those commercials and be like, well, I'm gonna buy next year. Like don't do that. Like, have a consultation, talk to someone, get more information. Yeah.
And that's real talk because when you consult with a professional that has valuable information or has information that they have done the legwork on, then you can rest assured that you're going to get really good information and accuracy.
I'm just kind of recapping some of the conversations I had with people on the casual. People be like, Nate, how's the market? And I'm like, oh, it's doing great, depending on what you're trying to do. And they're like, oh, how's the interest rates? And I'm like, the interest rates, they're around 6 and some change. He was like, and they'd be like, yeah, I need the interest rates to go down just a little more. Right. Like, so they watching the headline and that number, not knowing that you can buy down the interest rates, you can get a credit. There's several ways to overcome it right now. But I just recap several conversations that I have in passing in the casual. And people, again, these are examples of like people watching that number from the news and so forth. And so it's just crazy to me that is what's happening, and that is what's holding a lot of people back.
Exactly. And real talk, if you are in a position to where you can even build with a reputable builder, not necessarily the builders that have communities that's popping up all over town, but the builders that are doing like, building on your own lot, they even have incentives. Like with me, we are actually below what's going on in the market right now. And that's huge for us. But if you don't talk to a professional that can, connect you with the right vendors, then you're not going to know what you qualify for or what you can get. And you'll just go off of what you've been told or what you're hearing out here. And every individual has a unique situation. So that's just a blanket thing that's going on that you might hear about. But for your individual situation, it could be totally different from everybody else's.
It blows my mind that it only takes 10 to 15 minutes to see what you can get qualified for in a conversation with a lender. But people are so scared to even have that. I feel like they think it's obligation that is had once you talk to a lender. Like, you have to buy. Like, you don't even have to buy. You just have the consultation, assess your debt to income ratio, credit scores, and what do you make, and boom, either you qualify now or you need to work on some things, sir or ma'am. Right? It's as simple as that. But people don't even want to have that conversation. So you may not have to wait until next year. You might be ready tomorrow. Just some food for thought in regard to just options and programs out there. Yesterday, I went to a lunch and learn and learned about a company that helps or has the option for the buyer to put in cash offers. And this is a unique tool that I can't wait to utilize for some of my clients, because in a market where it's very competitive, and let's say there's a brand new house that just freshly got renovated and has a lot of attraction, and it's going to be bidding wars and a lot of competition. What this company, what they provide is they will finance the consumer and present them as a cash buyer. So in efforts to kind of like, be able to close in 5 to 7 days, and then buy the house so you can like outbid or, outshine all of the other competition. And then on the back end, they'll do the traditional financing once they get the house. And I'm thinking that is a cool tool to use for, super, attractive homes where, it's going to be a lot of, bids and so forth. So I was blown away. Like, man, you mean to tell me they'll buy the home in cash and then refinance it traditionally to the buyer. So that's a cool tool. I can't wait to use it. And because as the market heats up, there are going to start being a lot of people that's getting off of the fence as these interest rates continue to like lower. So
Is
that's the
that going to
tool.
be nationwide or just in your area?
So I just got certified as well. You have to take a class and become certified to even be able to use the product. I'll get more information for to see if it's nationwide, and I can give you that information. I don't want to misquote, but yeah, let me get back to you on that.
Yes, get that certification.
Yeah.
Yes, we need those.
Hmm.
And that's real talk what you said about the market is crashing. Because that right there is fake news.
Right.
Or the
Right.
market is getting ready to crash. There's fear associated with that because we already experienced that. So it's almost like bracing for the blow. And we really don't know what will happen, right? But it's good to keep a level head about things and really live in the moment and do what you can now instead of waiting later because we don't know, but that doesn't mean that because we don't know that the market is going to crash.
Right. Yeah. I mean, since I've been in real estate, the market's going to crash in a couple years. That's been the thing, and there's a need. There's a lack of homes, and yeah. So don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in the madness. Heard you. Dig a little.
Another bit of fake news that you might hear swimming around the atmosphere is if you flip homes, you can get rich and just follow these 3 easy steps. So when it comes to fake news like that, or someone trying to sell you on a dream, you really have to do your research on certain things like that. And sure, can flipping homes be lucrative? Absolutely. But there's a lot more moving parts than just 3 easy steps. So that's another thing that, because everybody, you might feel like everybody is flipping, everybody is buying and holding, which buying and holding right now isn't a bad idea. Is because people are going to want to rent homes. And I know we've talked about renting in the past, but renting is more or less a stepping stone to get out and build wealth and buy your own.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I was just having a conversation. Even myself, I'm trying to position myself to, of course, I want to impact the community and help as many people as I can with home ownership. But wealth is built by expanding your portfolio, right? And so if I can position myself, I want to be able to flip homes as well. So I'm actually have mentors that I've found a deal and then they've like renovated it and I was the listing agent. So I'm actually like trying to learn from them, save up enough from all the deals that I'm closing, find some more deals to where I can still learn. And then at some point, I'll have my own project. That's a goal. So I want to be able to do that, help, buyers, first time home buyers, and then get to a position where okay, now my LLC is making X amount of money, and I have enough revenue generated and income generated from deals to where I have credit to where I can buy a home up the street, through my LLC and buy and hold. So you do want to position yourself, not just buying and selling, but that's a goal of mine, and I feel like I'm very close to doing that. And yeah, having a mentor too. I think people think it's easy to jump out there and just do these tricks. And listen, sometimes when I'm showing some of these homes, Chrishana, you could tell this is a first time flipper because of the the stuff that's not done or halfway did or so I don't want any of my products to look like that. Like when I do get to flipping, I want to make sure it's a finished product. But I'm sure you see, just like I do, that yeah, this was a new investor. This was a new flipper, and this product is people cut corners. And I don't
Lipstick
want that.
on is
Yeah,
lipstick on a pig. That's what we
yeah.
call it.
Lipstick on a pig or a wig on a pig, and putting them units on them pigs. I don't know.
Did not go there. Okay. So
So
another fake news that could be swirling out there is turn any house into an Airbnb and make passive income. So not necessarily, because again, when you have moving parts and you're not doing your research, anything can sound good when it's just floating around, and then you see people doing it on social media, or you are going to these Airbnbs and you're renting them yourself and you're like, oh, I could do this, right? So there's always a good chance that it could not work for you, but then it could. I definitely want everybody to be successful, but you want to make sure that you do your research, that you fact check, and every area is different. You got to know your market. What is in your market right now that people have a need for? Because if you can fulfill a need, then yes, you can create income based on that need.
yeah, that's a good point. And you know what's interesting? So I had a listing that was up the street from where I live, and it was on a very challenging street, if you will, right? Very challenging street, not the ideal street. But, you know, I sold in the 15 days because, I'm the man. But after after I sold that house, I door knocked and let all of the neighbors know that I sold the house. And to my surprise, on that challenging street again, I bumped into some homeowners that had an Airbnb on that very challenging street. And I was so surprised, like, y'all doing okay? Y'all doing well? And they was like, yeah. I talked to them about 15 minutes, gave them my information. But it was just eye opening to me that their system that they have going works. It worked out regardless of the location. Again, I was blown away. Hence, it being a challenging street, if you understand what I'm saying, being
Mm-hmm.
politically correct, if you will, right?
Yeah.
But they had it for over a couple of years and they were doing well. I mean, and the house presented well as well. So I'm like, man, it just made me think about opportunity, and clearly they had experience. I'm sure they had like a couple more Airbnbs in different locations. So not to be confined to, like, you might feel like an Airbnb needs to be in the suburban area, or on the hill, or in the ideal location that is sought after in whatever neighborhood. But nah, you could be successful right in a not so sought after area if your systems are in place and you still have a product and the programs and all of that's working for Airbnb. So I learned something new that day. Like, man, I could buy me something and put it in the hood, if you will. I don't want to say the hood, but it was though. It really was. It was real talk, and yeah, like, I was blown away.
And then
And
too, many cities have restrictions that you have to also look at. You got to make sure that the city or the township where you want to have an Airbnb even allows for that. Like there's permitting rules, HOA rules.
yeah, and another one, and I'll digress too, is you know, you can have Airbnbs and you don't have to buy a house. You can just rent out an apartment, and then then do the Airbnb, which I'm sure there's ways where that is an option, but it's also leasing or managed property management companies that don't allow that, like you said, to your point. So you want to be careful on what works for this person that may not work for you. So don't go get three apartments and think you're gonna make all three of them Airbnbs if you haven't checked with the management and the conditions and restrictions and all of what they allow and don't allow. Like, I would definitely encourage you to, like you said, like we've been going over and over, do your research. Yeah.
And in North and
Yeah.
in North Carolina, if you are not working with a professional that knows the laws in North Carolina, if that you go and purchase a house, that is for sale. Like, for example, one of my clients looked at a duplex where one side was being rented out and the other side was Airbnb. So had there been already scheduled guests going in there and then we closed on the house, you want to make sure that you know the laws in that area, because does that mean that you still have to honor that? Or does that mean that you can just not honor those guests that have already booked for X amount of days, or there's already guests there and then you've already closed on that Airbnb? So it's important to get with the professional to find out what those are, because we know the laws, or whoever it is that you're working with. It doesn't necessarily have to be an agent, but still, you want to make sure that you know you do your due diligence if you're going to do this by yourself.
Definitely. And that's real talk. Do your thorough research, period.com. This is Real Talk with Chrishana and Nate, where we talk straight about real estate.
Bringing you news, events, real life, and what's happening in our local areas, from the East Coast to the West Coast.
I'm Nathan Hancock, serving the Greater Bay Area of California.
And I'm Chrishana Wilson, serving Eastern and Central North Carolina.
Catch us every Friday morning on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.